Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. Today on the Daily Review, we discuss a very good Malayalam film called The Great Indian Kitchen with your host, me, Professor Joe LaRocca. Directed by Gio Bobby. Or is it Gio Baby? Or is it Yo Baba? I don't know. I'm going to say it's Gio Baby. Or Bobby. Okay. This movie came out in 2022. It stars Namisha Sanjan and Siraj. I can't write what I wrote. Venjaramud. And they play husband and wife, and it is about an arranged marriage. And the absolute nightmare it is to be a woman in a traditional household. Pretty much anywhere in the world, but this is specifically in India. Right off the bat, I knew I was going to like the movie because the first title is maybe the best dedication I've ever seen, especially in the context of the movie. It just says, "Thanks, science." And I was like, now maybe is science like a popular musician or something in India? And I didn't get that, and I took it literally, like he was being like, hey, religion's causing problems for us. Let's look towards science. This movie is quietly a very punk, anti-religious film, I feel like. Because religion being one of the institutions that's causing lots of problems. So this arranged marriage, it starts out nice. It really starts out like a rom-com, especially the poster and stuff. All the other posters are even more happy looking than that. And over the course of 45 minutes of the movie or so, in which not tons of dialogue happens, it's all told visually. We just see the monotony of serving her husband and her father-in-law hand and foot, and them giving her like absolutely no respect, and the only attention she gets is when it's time to turn the lights out at night, if you know what I mean. Get humped for a little bit, and then she's like, great. And at first, it's all exciting and new, and she feels like, well, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the tradition. And the grandfather, or the father who lives there, the husband's father is very, very traditional. So obviously, it is trickled down to the father as well. And you just want to scream. This movie's kind of like a horror movie. Like, you just want to be like, ah, for her, because you feel. They build the pressure cooker, that's such a good illusion. There's a pressure cooker, and that's totally what's happening. We just observe her literally like just cleaning the drain out, because the drain keeps getting, and how like kind of gross that is. And then there's like a leak underneath, and there's gray water kind of dripping into it, and then you got to throw everything in this like compost bin. Everything's got like maggots on it. She's got all these images in her head, and then on top of that, it's not like she gets to eat with her husband. Nobody ever compliments her. The father is so traditional that he's like, oh, you're not cooking. Every single dish she makes that like speeds it up a little bit. You know what I mean? That modernizes it. He's like, oh, you should cook the rice with the fire stove. That's where you get the good taste. And she's like, what the fuck? Why bend over backwards for you when you're just some dick who's sitting around playing on his phone the whole time? There's a huge imbalance in the gender equality in this particular household. And I think in a lot of extremely religious, fundamentalist type religions I don't know all of them, tend to keep women in kind of a subservient role. And that's why I really don't like that element of a lot of religions, because we just had neighbors who moved out who are like, they stick to their Judaism so intensely. They like practice the Sabbath and all this stuff, and they have a sukkah, which is like a little thing that they build in the yard, but still, so they're that close to God. But that didn't stop them from just like leaving tons and tons of trash all over the sidewalk for the garbage people to clean up. And I was like, that's really not a living the golden rule kind of way. And so it's like, you stick to your religion so much that you can't turn on the lights on Saturday, but you don't follow it enough to think about your fellow man who's going to have to like You know, if you had like broken down those boxes and put them away, it would be much easier for somebody who's just doing a job. You know what I mean? So there's all that, and I'm sure I have tons of. I mean, I'm so afraid of that hypocrisy that I consider myself not religious because I would just be guilty the whole time of breaking these impossible rules, most of which were put in place to keep women down. Anyway, um, this movie just reminds me that like most movies just need to shut the fuck up and let the story play out. The big problem is that most movies don't have the story. They don't have the ability to do that. They're not saying something interesting enough. So they have to keep talking and jumping around all these scenes. This is just like, it just shuts up and plays out. And by the halfway point, you know this character better than you know yourself. It's beautiful. The wife, oh my God, it's so perfect. And you feel the imprisonment. It's just the slow building of it. There's no big fights. That'd be so unrealistic. If they made this in America, like within the first 10 minutes, the wife would have like shot the husband. You know what I mean? Be like, cook your own fucking meal, bitch. Oh my God. The Great American Pizza Kitchen. I keep wanting to say California Pizza Kitchen, which is kind of a lame restaurant that they have in malls around here. Okay. So, God, there's a sex scene with a montage in it that's amazing. Obviously not a graphic sex scene. We're still watching Indian cinema here. They're not going to like... I've seen, I think, a total of 3 boobs in all of these movies. So don't expect that. Yeah, I'm trying not to... Yeah, so yeah, the monotony of the story is all part of it, and it becomes hypnotic, and which is really great. And there's one great scene where the wife is forced to apologize for something that she... It's got a Roma feel. Roma, Alfonso Cuarón's Roma, a little bit of that. Just kind of the, I'm trying to think of the word, the honor in being the meek, you know, which is what I feel like Roma's about. Like, you may not be appreciated there, but you are like a special, you're like a godly, you're like an angel, you're like a special being on the planet to be so selfless, you know. There are Hindi and Tamil, I always say Tamil, but it's Tamil, I believe, remakes coming. And I'm actually interested in seeing those. And now I understand why they have remakes in India and stuff like that, get different actors in more popular regions. So they're just going to take this movie, which is Malayalam, which is a less popular, less budget, you know, region, and then just kind of make it in the bigger areas. Something tells me that those are going to suck, especially the Hindi one. But that's just a guess. She'll like slow motion kick fight a lion in that. Right now, I thought for sure that she was just going to feed them all the gray water and the bucket of composted food, but that's like what it would be in an American version. It'd be like the help, you know? Eat my shit, you know? But that doesn't happen because the movie is smarter than me, and it is way more restrained than I ever would have been. So I'll look at comments in a second, but it's really good. Like they get into a few subtle fights, and it's about like the littlest things. It's so amazing. And only in a movie where you've spent this much time with the characters and understanding the social context of everything could you have her making like a Facebook post be like the climax. You know, in most movies that would be like, why does that matter? It's like, no, well, you've set up a realistic world where that's how oppressed this person is. Essentially a slave, you know? So at first I thought it was just going to basically be about, hey, man, in society, like lots of forms of society, men are the selfish ones and women are like making the world work, you know? They're very selfless. Not saying that's 100%, but certainly in some cultures. And, but it ends up being more, you know, you can take it on that symbolic level and stuff for sure. But ultimately, by the end, it's like, it does end up being something where you're like, oh, this isn't, that's why they don't even give her a name. The man and the woman, they don't give them a name because it's like a template for this thing. And so it does work as a metaphor about a bigger problem. But then also, like, you get to know that character so well that her little, I don't know, I should just say, yeah, it's like, getting close to perfect. It was an awesome movie, and people who recommended it are really starting to understand what types of movies I like best. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want to see a big, crazy blockbuster, because there are the crazy blockbusters that are amazing and sent from heaven, like Mad Max Fury Road or something. But also sometimes I like the big dumb ones like Marvel movies just for fun, you know? And sometimes I just can't handle it. Sometimes it's a little too much fun for me, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I think that it's really great, and I'm going to give it an A. Oh, the A button. For some reason, it never wants to let me give anything an A. That button does not work, but I'm forcing it to work now. There, I'm getting an A. It's a fantastic movie. I loved it. Thanks, science. I literally wrote the top. It says, thanks, science. So I go, I love this movie already. Oh, and the last credit, the first opening credit of the end credits is cooked by. And then it says Joe, Bobby, and friends. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. My new favorite filmmaker of all time. So you can see it full HD quality, beautiful, relatively good subtitles. There was only a few times where I was like, that sentence doesn't make any sense on YouTube. So you can check it out. Nobody wanted to buy it. People are like, nobody's going to want to see this movie, like the streaming services. And then it did so well critically, and everybody went, yeah, so the father has got to be, people are bringing up how annoying the father is in this. It's like, yeah, and he's just wrong. And it brings about the final point I'll make, which is about traditions. And he's like all of his traditions are just totally wrong, I feel like. He's like, oh, you got to cook the rice at fire. Oh, you got to make the chutney by hand. It's like, oh, you got you got to just adapt, man. That's just not the way we're going to do things. Or the biggest one, he's like, oh, don't wash the clothes in the washing machine. That'll ruin the clothes. They don't last nearly as long. You know, you should do them by hand. Something tells me that putting clothes in a washing machine is not as hard on the clothes as literally beating them against a rock. And I think they specifically show that just because it's like, it's more that the father wants to just control somebody. Or just doesn't even think about it. It's like he doesn't even think. He treats her like a dog, you know? And he's just like, I'll do it that way. Almost like it's funny. Like, ooh, have her do it the hard way. Not that they ever show that. But it's like, if you think that beating your clothes against a rock is more gentle on your clothes, then you're a pretty stupid person. Because a washing machine just goes like this. Maybe he's afraid of the hot water or something. I don't know. But yeah, he's a symbol. And then probably the second, like the midpoint of the movie is when the wife realizes that the husband's going to be no different. That it's just that it's not like, oh, well, let's just wait, and when the father dies, the household will be different. No, it's going to be like this forever. And I think that's when her mind really starts changing. And what's great is that she never talks to anybody. She doesn't say any of this stuff. You just see it by her face or by the way it was shot, almost like they're using the visual aspect of a movie, which, in case you're wondering, is the biggest asset a movie has. Its ability to tell the story visually. So I think the editing is perfect. They do that thing where they hold on a shot just a few seconds longer so that gives you a second time to like, or gives you an extra second to think, oh, what did they mean something by that. You know, it gives you an extra thing. Yeah, I wish everybody got their comeuppance more, but I guess they do in a way. I love it. Okay, you guys can like and subscribe if you like to subscribe. Yeah, we're getting a lot of yeah. Oh, yeah, dude, I'm not... We live in the modern age. Certain Malayalam and Bollywood films can be woke. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm not saying that all of India is like this. I'm saying this household is being overly traditional. Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, Anton, because I'm not saying that. Like, I don't think that everybody in India is like living out in the jungle, like, of Kerala, like being yelled at by their parents. No, I'm specifically like, and I think the movie itself isn't saying, it's saying like, hey, and this is what we get to when we get to it. I am loving. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just reading the chat real quick. Yeah, I am loving these Malayalam films. I'm sure they're bad ones too. I'm gonna like find a bad one just to prove a point. But yeah, I'll probably move along to. There's a few other types of Indian cinema that I really don't feel like I've dove into, because I feel like I've seen really just kind of like some big Telugu and Hindi movies, some of which were more along the lines of what I like, but then all these Malayalam films are really, really up my alley. I think because in a lot of ways they are a bit more like art house American films. Whereas even the art house Telugu films and stuff, or the ones that are less blockbustery, they're still structurally very different. So which makes it just a little bit more difficult for a foreigner to get into them. Whereas this is more along a similar pacing than that I think a Western audience would be used to. But also, most Americans would say this is the most boringest movie of all time because nothing happened. You know, they should have called it The Loneliness of the Traditional Wife. You know, instead of Loneliness, Long Distance Runner. Anyway, okay. That's it. Oh my God, I talked 15 minutes. That's too long. But I still haven't done what I learned. This is good. What I learned today is that tradition can be broken without sacrificing the importance of cultural heritage. Think about it. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks for an excellent recommendation. Peace and love.